an anarchist comrade reached out to discuss what we should do. He's an anarchist in London, and he just reached out recently to engage me in terms of what I think people should be doing. These different groups of political circles, the kind of white lefty liberals, middle class liberals on the one hand, the kind of council estate youth on the other hand, who are often black and brown, and the more radical anarchists who seem to be absent for the time being. Anyway, this was my voice note response to him, which I just thought our viewers would like to perhaps listen in on. So here we go. Apologies, it's taken me a day later to get back to you. I address a lot of what you are engaging with me on the counter-narrative news episodes. I don't know how long you've been involved. I've been involved for nearly 30 years, 27 odd years, started in about 94, 95. My first actions actually was a police monitoring patrol in Southall during the Eid festival, and also advocating against racist exclusions of pupils from secondary schools. Quite interesting, considering that these are some of the kind of core issues of the grassroots. Anyway, so listen, look at the last 20 odd years, all right? There's a few things I want to say. First of all, the balance of forces of the class struggle, where we're at today. We're in a really, really reactionary place, going forward into even a deeper reactionary place. We are under the hegemony of the far right, who are now center ground politics in this country, explicitly and overtly in the government, and accepted in the center ground. There is no left. There is no left, actually, that exists in any way, shape, or form. And the lockdown, things went further to the right wing. During the lockdown, actually, definitively, I think it was historically sealed that the working class grassroots are more influenced by the far right and the right wing, and have either negligible traction with the left, or are hostile to the left. And the form of the left in this country is actually colonial liberalism. It's not global left. So considering the class struggle is in such a dire state, we have to just be cognizant of that in terms of just understanding where we are. On top of that, look at the last 20 years. People did not want to unite. Look at that whole Plan B thing. They just refused to engage with me and the Malcolm X movement. The sectarianism is crazy out there. And the sectarianism wouldn't be so bad, because sectarianism has always existed. When I researched the 60s and 70s, sectarianism is all over it. But the difference is people were actually fighting at the grassroots, taking initiatives, being courageous, being brave, and serving the people in struggle. That's gone today. It's absent. It's not there anymore. So what do we do from here on in? To answer your question, I suppose, directly. Sorry it's taken me nearly 3 minutes to get to this place, but I think it's important just to establish where we're at, what's happened. And in terms of what happened, what's the most radical thing that's happened in the last 20 odd years? August of 2011 and the summer of 2020, particularly June the 13th, 2020. Nothing else radical has really happened. I mean, you could say, okay, London Black Rebs did some really interesting things. Even Loki's equality movement circa 2010 was a contribution. But see, August 2011 and June the 13th, 2020, that has specific things that leads up to it, right? There's specific processes that leads up to it. There's nearly, you could say August 2011 really starts with the failure of opposing the Iraq War, arguably. You could say it starts from there. You could say August 2011 it's a class struggle that's culturally manifested out of the grime culture. Look at the trap and drill culture today. Totally reactionary. Doesn't even have the type of confrontational class struggle attitude that grime culture has. So again, I'm saying that to say, let's be honest about what we have here. This is the class struggle, and it's a big fucking mess. June the 13th, 2020 happens in the unique context of narrowly the oppressive lockdown and the mass social death around that, But and all the police repression and all of that. I mean, also, when something so drastically and quickly and dramatically as a lockdown, it's going to create some kind of social reaction. It's not creeping and insidious, is it? Like the mundanity of general British fascism as we've seen it emerge. But also, summer of 2020 and June the 13th, 2020 is a culmination of the long Tory regime going quickly to the far right. It's also a response to things like Windrush and Grenfell and Brexit, and also it's a response to, obviously, the ongoing police brutality. So all of these things create the summer of 2020, which is black-led, which is council estate, working class-led, which BLM sell out and all of that. Going forward, so what am I saying? I'm saying all this to inform what I'm going to say next, which is people aren't going to unite. They're not going to come together. They aren't. They didn't in August 2011, and they didn't in the summer of 2020. So what do? On the media front, I mean, you've said this about your sticker kind of campaign. There's no advocacy of radical anarchist, radical socialist, black power politics. There just isn't there. And if it is, it's this kind of the historical kind of museum politics, often deposited in colonial institutions like the BBC, with the Small Axe series and all of this kind of stuff. So we need more people speaking in a more authentic, loyal, sincere way about advocating for radical class struggle that we don't, which is absent currently. So there's that. There's the cultural work, research work, historical work, into media work to create the culture and music and arts and all of that. Secondarily, I think people need to just be rooted in their real immediate communities and start setting up organizations explicitly that are radical but are serving the people. So here, for example, we got the Jessica Huntley Community Garden, which in itself is named after Jessica Huntley, a pioneering black revolutionary figure here, but also it's organized by black communists. I'm the project manager of it, right? And it's explicitly political. And we have a launch, we have some other projects going on. So people have to do things at their locality to raise our histories and ideologies in a real meaningful lived sense amongst communities, which is generally absent. So there's two things I'm saying. One thing, people actually develop the media and cultural struggle. Two, actually develop localized class struggle and mass work. Beyond that, I think we just have to be very realistic that, since some of the ruckus and the poll tax, Stephen Lawrence campaign, some of the, campaigns against deaths in police custody, there's been no ruckus class struggle. We have to be honest where things have been and where things are going. And class struggle is diminishing, it's not growing. The pressure on the working classes is growing. Okay, we've had a quote-unquote strike wave, which has been run down, sold out, manipulated, and neutralized. It has. There is no new militant class struggle in the trade unions that has forged out of this whole period. There isn't. IWGB is good. Angry Workers Union is good. But, it's still marginal and it's peripheral. Don't get me wrong, it's important to support, especially IWGB, but it's not really going anywhere despite the growing pressure on the working classes of exploitation and oppression. So that's where things, I think are at the moment. And I think very few people are on these agendas and on these strategies. I think the conversations, even like the one we're having, is few and far between. And if there is political conversations, I think they're awful, totally miss the point in large degree. Yeah, that's where I think things are at going forward. We have to be very brutally honest and scientific about where things have been, why they have occurred, where we're at, and where we're going forward next. Hope that's of some use, bro.